Welcome to The Great Path. As always, I'm your host, Tony B. Today, we are here in Iceland, the place I love, with my friend I made when I was here the first time 2 years ago. It's Theo, right?
Yes.
Now, can you pronounce your full name? Because I know I can't.
My full name is Theodór Árni Söebech Hansson.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 4 names.
4 names.
Which is very common in Iceland. At least 3 usually. Well, not uncommon to have 4 names.
What do the 4 names signify?
Theodor is the old Greek Theodor, which means God's gift. Yeah.
So when someone asks you, you think you're God's gift?
That's what they call me. Árni is an old Icelandic name which means eagle. Söebech, it's very unusual. I actually have a family name.
Oh, okay. And that's unusual in Iceland?
There are almost no family names. You're named after your parents.
Interesting.
So my last name is Hansson, so Söebech is my family name, which goes back to Germany, Prussia actually, 17th, 16th century.
That's really cool.
I am like 1/64th German. Yeah, all of the rest is Icelandic.
That's awesome.
Because of a lot of research into the past, the sagas, genealogy, I can trace my family back to 816, I think it was.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. Hansson. So my father's name is Hans, and I'm his son.
So Hansson.
Son.
That makes sense.
This is the usual, the old sort of family name tradition. You'd be named after your father or your clan if you were like from Ireland or Scotland. Later, when the church and the kings got sort of more control, more centralized power, they had family names for record keeping, and quite often it'd be the profession. Smith, Thatcher.
You see a lot of that in the States. Baker.
Yeah, exactly.
My last name's Buceri, which stands for butcher. So, yeah. So that makes sense too, because of like the famous Icelandic people that I know of. There's like Annie Thor's daughter, and then you see a lot of those where it's like females will have the last name something Dottir.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was pretty cool.
You can also be named after your mother. I could be Catherine's son if I wanted.
Oh, okay.
Because my mother's name is Catherine.
Okay. So so the child gets to determine what they go by then?
Well, the parents originally, but the child can change his name. So I know of several instances where the mom was a single parent to raise the kid. It's like, yeah, I would be named after my mom. She did the raising.
Yeah, she did all the work.
Yeah, which is not uncommon. Even both. I could be Theodór Árni Söebech Hansson Katrinason if I wanted.
That's a bear of a name. Take you 10 minutes to sign it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over a little bit. Obviously, I know we talked before, but I'm going to go over a little bit about what the concept of the Great Path is, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So to me, the concept of the Great Path is really everyone's individual path, direction through life. I call it the Great Path because being a huge Star Wars nerd, which you can appreciate, I've always been drawn to the Grey Jedi, not to the Sith, not to the Standard Jedi. I've always believed that the way to walk through life is to utilize everything and not be stuck in dogmatic views of the light or the dark, hence the gray. But I've kind of extrapolated that out largely to really encompass everyone's real path. And I say real path through life because, and I'm sure you can appreciate this as well, how many of us live aspects of our life based on expectations and beliefs that maybe aren't necessarily our own. You know, parental stress. You know, mom and dad say, you've got to be this. Society says you've got to be this. Friends say you've got to be this. I've always been a loner my whole life. I've been that guy who kind of shucks tradition. Not that I don't feel the stress, because I feel the stress of things like, not for me, it was never parental pressure, but it was societal pressure. Like, you know, to be a man, you've got to do this. And I've felt that, but I have a big problem with authority. So I've pushed past that and kind of discovered what I call my gray path. And I think everyone has a gray path. And my gray path, I'm certain, is different than your gray path, which is different from your wife's gray path. It's different from the path your son will walk. So my goal in all of this is to try to help people like us, the super geeks of the world, the people that it's more natural for us to pick up a sword or a lightsaber or a video game controller or whatever than it is to pick up like an American football or to do something that's traditional. So that's essentially the idea of what we're doing here. And really, I'm just going to let you talk about your experiences. I mean, you're born and raised in Iceland. I've been here twice now, and like, just it's a different culture, it's a different belief, and I just think there's so much that my listeners can learn, especially those who have never had a chance to come here. Which, if you haven't, I cannot stress it enough. Come here. It's an experience unlike anything you'll ever have. So, I mean, I'm just kind of gonna kick the ball rolling. So, your acting page is Swordbiter. And I have heard this story, and I'm sure it's shorter annotated version, but do you want to explain to everyone why you're called Swordbiter?
So, people started asking me for my Facebook, like fans, people that came to Iceland to go on a Game of Thrones tour with me. We had some sort of connection, the geekiness part, and they asked me for my Facebook. I didn't feel comfortable just giving random people my personal account, so I made, let's see what's available, actor, I suppose, and I need a name. Using my own name is sort of complicating, so just something from my past, what has happened to me, which is unusual, interesting, and geeky. So I've been training sword fighting, Viking style sword fighting for 15 years now. We use steel weapons, wooden shields, try to have it as authentic as possible without aiming the weapon sharp. No hitting in the head, because it's obviously very dangerous. Training one day, we're outside, it was great weather, running around, it was a big field. I find a friend of mine comes running as fast as he could. I thought someone was going to stop him, so I didn't pay too much attention. I was like, this guy. And suddenly my friend comes running right up to me. I turn around and he just runs into me accidentally. His sword hit my shield and bounced up and went straight up into my mouth.
Makes me cringe every time I hear it.
Somehow he managed to miss all of my teeth. He broke I
think it's called plate, like the upper plate.
Yeah, sort of fractured it. But you can't put a cast.
Yeah.
So just chew delicately for a few months. So there was no real damage. But it was a very close call. You could have just taken out all my teeth.
Oh my God.
And this is like, we were very safe in our training. We train twice a week all year round to prevent things like this from happening. Never been hurt before. 15 years. We're not supposed to talk about the dangerous aspect, so don't give like the wrong image of the thing. But this is just so unusual, so unique.
It is unique. I mean, yeah. So let me ask you this, because it interests me, because obviously being the nerd that I am, that's all I'd talk about if I sword fought. But why do they, I mean, obviously other than trying to scare people away, is there any sort of like, is there a negative view if you talk to people about, injuries? Because obviously injuries occur. I mean, I have fought with hardened foam weapons in the States, and I mean, we've had a fair share of injuries. Nothing quite like that. So is it just like, let me two-part that question. How does the rest of Iceland view you guys who choose to sword fight?
We're sort of a fringe group of geeks, weird people, but still in a cool way, because it's very sort of cultural, it's our heritage.
Yeah.
But we do so much more than sword fighting. Got all the crafts and the community. And if you always talk about how crazy it is, how dangerous, people just get a wrong view of the thing, because it isn't mainstream.
which would make sense. To equate it to my friends in the States, I very briefly, just for a few hours, I stopped at a camp 2 days ago. And it reminded me a lot of a more authentic version of Ren Fair, where you've just got people who kind of live the lifestyle when they're doing it. Like they had the fire pit dug, the fire going, they were cooking with traditional vessels, it was awesome. But to me, because I'm such a nerd and because to me, that's normal. I see that and I'm like, that's just people passionate about what they do and want to have that authentic experience. And what's nice about here in Iceland is you guys really are just reliving your heritage. We're kind of pretending in the States. I mean, because even if, like, let's say you are European, your family might be European. You might be 4 or 5 generations removed from it. So when they do Ren Fair in the States, it's great. But you guys, it's really just like, it'd be like if we went to, oh God, what are the words? If we did colonial reenactments, that's probably the closest thing in America to what you guys are actually doing, which I think is fascinating. And to me, I think it's awesome to hear that you guys are considered a fringe group because I love the fringe. I think that's awesome. So what sparked your interest? Obviously, I imagine most of your life you've been involved in, Icelandic history and the Viking history. What sparked your interest, your passion for it?
So I'm a historian from the University of Iceland, specializing in medieval history. What really got me into the Viking first was the swords. I love swords. It's cool, Lord of the Rings swords, Warhammer, lightsabers. So here was a venue where I could sword fight. That's great. Started doing that, and then it sort of expanded. And we do the whole culture as well as we can. All the clothes are authentic, made from the proper material based on actual archaeological finds. The tents are, pretty accurate as far as we know. It's always sort of evolving. I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. This is our culture, but it is a very open and accepting culture. We have people in the Viking group that are African American. We have Mexicans, we have Australians, Russians, pretty much people from all over. One of my best friends in the group is from Palestine.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, being a Viking is here. It's in your brain. It is how you identify yourself, which is very much in line with the old Viking culture. The Vikings traveled a lot. They went to the Americas.
I was gonna say, yeah, they're talking. I remember reading some articles that they're pretty well. I think they've officially declared that the Vikings were there. Like they were one of the first people to ever that weren't indigenous to North America. They were there first, long before everybody.
Around 1000 after Christ, we were there. So a lot of people know that, but they don't know we also traveled east and south. So sailing in the Mediterranean, down around Africa, down the big rivers in Russia, the Volga and Danube and stuff like that. They went to the Black Sea, they went to the Caspian Sea. They traded in Afghanistan, Baghdad, all over. There are trade agreements in Baghdad signed in Nordic runes.
That's so cool.
And if they went to France, the Vikings were Christian. When they went to further east, they were Buddhists. When they went further south, they were Muslim. Just whatever. Culture, religion, we're all just people.
So that kind of brings me to my next question, which is, that's fascinating to hear, that the concept that to be a Viking is really a mindset. It is not a cultural identity, it is a mindset. What does it mean to be, like, what is that mindset, if you were to try to describe it?
It's belonging with like-minded people. It is, a lot of us are like nerds, geeks, but it's from all over society. We've got teachers and carpenters and rich people, poor people, young people, old people. It's just everyone. We come together because we share an interest and a passion in a certain time period, a certain culture. Just getting together. You can go out of your sort of societal part you play. So when you're a Viking, you're not a teacher. You're not Christian, you're not political, you're just yourself in a group of people. We try to judge each other because we're just passionate about this. We're friends. Even the ones you don't like, they're still your friends. There's one thing that bothers me a lot. And what bothers me a lot is the sort of right-wing extremist, neo-Nazi sort of racist use of Nordic culture, Nordic heritage. I hate that. That's not who the Vikings were. They were accepting to everyone. If you had money, if you had silk, if you had interesting wares, beautiful women, beautiful men, we're friends. Yeah. So when these extremist assholes are taking my culture, appropriating my culture in a completely wrong and political context, that bothers me.
I think you have every right to be bothered. I think, to me, and obviously I am not a Viking, although as you're describing it, I may strive to be one. I hate the white supremacists, Nazis, whatever you want to call them, whatever name they choose to go by these days. I've always been of that mindset that anyone who is excluding and hating of others for reasons that make no logical sense whatsoever, they just don't have a place. Like, when we were at the Viking camp 2 days ago, and I had asked you what was up with the costumes, and you explained to me, which I loved that was basically the disco era, as far as, and then we talked about why that was the case, and you had mentioned that if you were a colorful, good guy, friendly guy, everyone had your back. That was that sense of inclusivity. You were part of something. But if you were the weird, grungy kid or whatever you want to call it as, people wouldn't have your back. And I think that's what's happening with these youth is people who are appropriating Viking culture are the weird. They're pretending to be the big flashy guy who has all the friends when really they're the sad, mean little whatever who sits in the corner. On a side note, can you explain to them the disco? Because this was fascinating. Because I don't know how much any of you know about Viking culture. I know very, very little, and I'm learning more day by day. But I looked around and I saw a lot of the dress that was going on, and obviously that whole concept of the horned helmet is ridiculous. It never existed. But I was curious why they dressed the way they did, and this is how he explained it to me.
So during the Viking Age, in the Nordic countries, there was no centralized authority. We had kings, but like Norway had 7 or 8 kings at the same time. So a king was a guy who had like a few hundred men following him, declared, "I am a king." And they were described as a passing plague, because they would come through the area, demand tax, and then just leave. Then there was another king who came through, demanded tax.
And just left.
Yeah. And this means there's no king's justice. Mm. If someone steals from me, I can't go, there's no police. There's no legal system. I have to make sure that people don't steal my stuff. And the way to do that is being powerful, having friends and allies. So, if I'm rich and powerful, I've got a lot of pull in politics and the legal system. People won't mess with me because they know they're going to get in trouble. And this is also the reason there's the blood feuds. Because if somebody comes and steals my sheep, that's going to be a blow to my honor. People look at me like, nah, Theodor's not that great. He can't even defend his sheep. This new guy, he's pretty powerful, just came and took the stuff. So I have to go and get revenge. I'll go and beat up one of his guys. And he gets angry, so it escalates. So he sends people to my place, kills one of my workers. Spilling blood. That's serious. I gather a huge group of men, we go and kill a bunch of them. Then he gets a lot of people together. It escalates till someone backs down, preferably before bloodshed. And this means you want to look impressive. You want to be popular. So the Vikings would spend their money on expensive clothing. The hard to get colors, blue, purple, silks. The fingers would be full of rings, silver and gold. They would take coins, drill holes in them, and put them on a necklace. So you had like a money necklace. The fanciest sword that money could buy. So this guy walks in to the club, and everyone, whoa, that's a cold-ass honky. Yeah, that's a guy I want to know.
Oh, that's so... I mean, and that makes complete logical sense and is so opposing to the ridiculousness you see in film, because you always see these Vikings as these drab, just shades of gray, just drab looking. I mean, they'll obviously have a few pelts or something for warmth on them, but, you know, they always describe them as just like barbarians, for lack of a better term.
And this fits into sort of the narrative. Because the Viking Age, they were pagan. All of Europe was Christian. The sort of short version, the reason for the Viking Age, the combination of weather and culture. There were several very good summers and mild winters, which means more food, more children survive and grow up. So it was surplus of young people. The way inheritance works, back in the day, the oldest son would get the land, the farm, the whatever. The younger sons would get whatever money was available. Suddenly you had a huge number of young men with a lot of money and no land. So they pooled their resources, got ships, started trading and raiding. So two Europeans, the Christian Europeans, suddenly without warning there's this army, this scourge of pagans attacking their lands, burning churches, taking slaves. Horrible. I mean, the Christians are also burning churches and taking slaves.
Exactly. So it really just matters who's telling the story.
But they're like Christian, they're hard people. These are an outside force. So they're demonized. They got horns, they're barbarians wearing furs, they're these horrible animal black people. And it fits the narrative. And they're sort of stuck. Like Native Americans all wearing like feather hats and...
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happened in most of American history. That's pretty much what happened, is the Native Americans were viewed as savages, is what they called. Which couldn't be farther from the truth. When you actually dig into their heritage, they were advanced, they were intelligent, they were inquisitive, and incredibly friendly. But yeah, it doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative says that America good.
Yeah, and as a historian, I sort of find it's my place to fight the narrative. What are the actual facts? What was history really like? What were people like? Not what sort of culture did we make up in the romantic movement of the 18th, 19th century? And a fun fact, if you look at, for example, traditional food, the national food of whichever country in Europe, they're always going to include potatoes. That's not very traditional. Yeah, that's a New World thing brought from Americas. Because before that, there wasn't this sense of nationality and national pride that comes sort of the Napoleonic Wars is sort of the start of the huge national movement that swept Europe.
Yeah.
So people like, we're a nation, we're a people. We need to have like our flag and our culture, our language, and our food. What do we eat? Potatoes. pork or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
So we just start taking all these, or a lot of these ancient cultural traditions are maybe 300 years old. You have to dig a lot deeper to find the actual roots.
So to build on some lessons here, just in what we've talked about, which I find fascinating, so it seems to me, if I'm understanding this correctly, so one of the key characteristics of the Viking mindset is the understanding that, for lack of a better term, we are all Vikings. That was the concept, is it's not, and I guess this gets me to a topic for today, which is division. And one could argue that as a people, especially in America, I can't speak for the rest of the country, the rest of the world, we're incredibly divided. Like, this concept of we are one people is, it's like people almost fight against it now. Like, you were talking about how nationalities now, it's like, oh, well, we're Chinese, or we're this, we're that, where, as I'm understanding it, the Viking was, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, purple, green, doesn't matter, you are a Viking. A Viking is a Viking, period. I think that's a really good lesson to take to heart there, is if you dig past national identity, gender identity, sexuality, we are all just people. Like, I think that's powerful. I mean, and it sounds cliche, but like, I think that's a powerful lesson to dig into, because I think a lot of what makes people like us feel alone is all of these categories and boxes that everyone is forced into these days. I mean, especially in America, I don't know if it's the case out here, but like in America, even young school-age children, I mean, my son's 9, they started asking him in first grade, he's going into 4th now, they started asking him in first grade, what do you plan to be when you grow up? What are you working towards? And he came home and he asked me, he was really stressed one day, and he was like, I don't know. He's like, maybe I want to be this. And I was like, buddy, I forget how old he was. He was like 6 at the time. I was like, you're 6 years old. You're not going to know what you want to be. And I guarantee what you think you want to be now is likely not what you're going to be. I mean, hell, just between the ages of 18 and like 22, I probably changed what I wanted to be when I grew up about 100 times. So really, one of the things I think to take from this is understanding that, like, the Vikings had it right. I mean, it is a mindset. We are a people. You are a Viking. And it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, right-wing, left-wing, smart, stupid, rich, poor. Like, that sense of belonging. We all can belong if we get out of our own stupid way of categorizing each other. Sorry, I saw that there, and I wanted to point that one out.
And it's right. Being a Viking is something you do. And back in the day, Viking was a profession, not a culture. You'd be a farmer in the summer, and then there was like, oh, it's trading or raiding time. People come together, get a ship, go raiding or trading or settling or whatever. Then it's like, oh, raiding, trading is over. They went back home, became farmers again. So it's like more of a profession.
Okay.
And everyone could be included. We have Irish settlers in Iceland from early on. There's one of the reasons that there weren't really Viking states or countries in Europe, because north of France was conquered and settled by Vikings. Eastern Europe, huge parts of Russia, Kiev is an old Viking city. England, York, like most of England was conquered. Scotland, Ireland, but they didn't remain Nordic countries. They weren't Viking countries, because the Vikings just assimilated the people.
Yeah.
I'm not a Viking by culture, I'm a Viking by profession. I go to England, kill some English nobles. This is my land. This is great. They're great people here. They're my friends. Ooh, this lady is very pretty. I'm gonna go get her some silver or something. Because they're just people. And then in a couple of generations it just merged.
What do you feel it means today to be a Viking?
Today, to be a Viking, I would say, is a sense of community, a sense of belonging. We're all people that share the same passion. We might have a huge festival with 500 or 600 people on the battlefield fighting competitively, you know, screaming bloody murder at each other, stabbing with spears and swords and stuff. Afterwards, we're all friends. We go drink beer together next to the fire, or go swimming in the ocean, and that guy you were just looking at with murder in your eyes, I'm gonna kill this fucker. He's your best friend. Because we have this shared passion and belonging. It's a little bit like a big music festival, because it's like metal festival, where the people are there for the music, not for the partying. We're all a family. We take care of each other. Someone has trouble, we help them. Someone doesn't have food, have my food. You know, their kids running around a Viking camp, and they're safe, because these children are all of us, all of our children. It's very beautiful.
I'm sure this probably goes, it's a stupid question to ask, but do you think the world as a whole can learn something from that? Do you think there needs to be more Vikings?
Definitely. Vikings by any other name. Because we're all the same people.
That's profound. Let me ask you this. So obviously you're born and raised in Iceland, and you know you've been to America. I know you've been quite a few places. What do you think is great about growing up in Iceland?
In Iceland, it is a small country, so don't have the same amount of fear and paranoia. In the States, you're like 100 times more people there than here. You turn on the news, there's a school shooting, there are abduction, murder, people raped all over, drugs. It is terrifying. Here we have sort of a more realistic statistic. There's maybe one murder every 2 or 3 years. And it's always people know each other. There's a fight over a woman, people have been drinking, it's an accident. Premeditated murder in Iceland, it doesn't happen. So we get a more realistic view of a sort of the likelihood of bad things happening. And the news here, they're interesting. They're not terrifying. So yeah, it's a small community. It makes more sense, more context of being. We think we are an incredibly big people. As in, Reykjavik is a big city. Just as important and big as New York or Tokyo or whatever. Because it's our city and we are super important. It's not necessarily bad. I'm not important because I'm better than you. I'm just important because I live in this shitty country where there's always rain. And somehow my family, my ancestors, managed to not starve, freeze, be buried by volcanic ash. So we're proud, but not in a way that is demeaning to others.
Proud but not arrogant.
Yeah.
Which is, and I can tell you, there's a reason I'm here for a second time. I think you guys have plenty to be proud of. Like, I love it here. I think this is my version of paradise, because this, I mean, is it Reykjavik? Reykjavik. Yeah, it may not be the size of New York City, but I would come here any day of the week before I'd go to New York City, because you're right. It's safe here. It's peaceful here. The people are friendly and they're not pompous. They're always willing to lend a helping hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and you know, you travel an hour from here in any direction and you're just hit in the face with beauty. It just smacks you. Like you couldn't avoid it if you tried. Yeah, I think it's, and I kind of get that sense, and obviously not everyone in Iceland is a Viking, but you can get that sense if you talk to you talk to a handful of random people on the street, you can feel that sense of community. You walk down the street, and I'm a big observer, I like to watch. I mean, as much as I talk, when I first come to a place, I generally don't talk at all. whether it's to a small group of people or to a huge group of people or to a country. I like to sit and I watch and I soak it all in and I assimilate it in my brain and figure out how it makes sense to me, and then I engage, and then I never shut up. But during that stage, when I walk the streets here and I watch parents with their kids, or what I assume must be like a daycare, because there'll be like a line of kids, or a school, there is a indisputable sense of community here, where it's like we're all in this together. And you can find pieces of that in the States, like you can, but as a national identity, it couldn't be farther from what it feels like. I haven't done an episode on this yet. I eventually will, on what I call force sensitivity, but to me, the feel of this place is peace. Peace, and I don't want to call it understanding, but like, you can come here and unless you're a dick, you're going to be accepted. And that's profound, at least for me, from the States, because that's not always the case. I mean, you're going to find great people in the States, and you're going to find people from now and then who have that feeling. There's a group in that I've met up with in Pennsylvania, the Dagger Here group. They're probably the closest thing I've seen to Vikings. It's the same exact concept. Doesn't matter who you are, what you look like. If you fight together, you're family. But what are we there? We are the freaks, the outliers. People look at us and like, you spend your weekends hitting each other, like, and then you go out and you have a beer. I mean, it's no different from martial arts. Some of the best people in my life I've ever met, have both punched me in the face or attempted to break my bones. But there's a bond there that you can't get outside of that. It's more than respect. It's kinship.
Yeah. A friend of mine went to a Viking festival in America. First time the Icelandic group went there, and they'd been a nice festival, and they went drinking beer, and he forgot to put his sword away. So he still had a steel sword on his belt, and an American police officer shows up, looks at him and says, "Who the hell do you think you are? Some sort of Peter Pan?" And my friend just stopped, thought, I suppose I am. In a way, I refuse to grow up. And this man's been a teacher for 40 years. He is a very respectable man, but still there's this part of him that just, I want to belong to a community where I can have fun without having to feel ashamed. And you see that if one person goes walking wearing Viking clothes downtown, nobody sees you. Everyone's just like, that's some sort of madman. I'm not going to interact with him. But is there 2 or 3 Vikings? Oh, cool. Who are you guys? What's going on? Everyone's friendly and interested. So a community. One weirdo, that's weird. 20, 30 weirdos, that's interesting.
That's really cool. I mean, and so to kind of, you and I have used this term amongst ourselves several times when we talk about our people, and it's such a broad term, but in a way, when I say things like my people, or you say my people, it is kind of that Viking mindset where it's those of us out there who enjoy the geeky things, the fringe, and and this includes people that may have never picked up a sword or may never even want to pick up a sword. There is I guess if you get anything from this episode, I think hopefully everybody understands that, like, you're not alone. There are so many of us out there. And it's so wide. The variety is so vast. I mean, I have a friend, his name is Damien. He is one of the hardest working, physically strongest people I've ever met. I met him through Strongman. The guy is a friggin' workhorse. And he's a nurse, and he works his ass off, and he is a huge nerd. Huge nerd. He doesn't go around and broadcast it like we do, but he is a huge nerd. And I think what I've learned is there's so many of us out there who maybe never would have identified as one of us because of stigmas. Because it's not cool. It's not cool to like Zelda. It's not cool to like Star Wars. It's not cool to like Harry Potter. It's not cool to... I think we're all geeks. I just think... And I don't. And when I say the word geek, I mean someone who is passionate about something. And I think we all have that. Whether it can be something like stamp collecting. I have another friend. He owns a gym. Super nice guy. He's a professional wrestling nerd. Like, he could sit there and be like, I'll tell you all about Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. And it's awesome when you meet someone who is a geek, because there is a fire that gets lit behind their eyes when they start talking about something. And that's what I feel the world needs more of. And that, to me, it's in its own way kind of like the Viking culture, that geek culture, that maybe I'm geeky about this and you're geeky about that, but we're still geeky and we can geek out together. And it's this sense of community and inclusion. We're going to touch real briefly on this, just because it's a cool thing. So I haven't mentioned this, but Teo has worked quite a bit on Game of Thrones as an extra and a stuntman.
Yeah.
That's actually how I met him. I met him on the Game of Thrones tour, which was awesome. But without going in any sort of, because we could spend 5 hours on that. What kind of cool lessons did you learn being part of that? Because that's kind of like a community in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's definitely a community. People with a shared job, profession, passion for many of them. For some of them, it's just a job. They never read the books, they don't know anything about it, don't care about it. But those who are into it, we share this definite connection. I was in 4 separate seasons. Pretty much everything they filmed in Iceland, I was somehow there. I signed a very detailed non-disclosure contract, so I can't go into any details. But there are great people there. Fantastic people, the actors. That's one thing I learned. I've worked quite a bit with famous or semi-famous people. They're exactly like us, except they have unusual jobs.
That's cool.
And I worked with, entertained incredibly rich people, like oil barons type of people, and you could never tell. They're exactly like us. They have the same geeky interests, the same. They'll help you drop something. I'll pick that up. Here's your apple, and that guy could pretty much buy Iceland. It's just their job that is unique, special, and weird, which has a lot of problems itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the actors I worked with, all the directors, all these guys, we share a passion, and it's great. We have a sense of belonging. The crew was and is incredibly professional. I've never seen that amount of organization, and it's inspiring. It really is. It was fantastic fun. Costumes were pretty good. Met friends.
That's awesome. Did you get a lot of respect for, because people who are not from Iceland, especially because you guys did a lot of filming in the winter, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Did you get a lot of respect for people? Because I imagine a lot of those people have probably never experienced an Icelandic winter, and I imagine those filming days had to be long. That's...
So we had people from, for example, South Africa. They had never seen snow in their life.
And welcome to Iceland. Here's 100 feet of snow.
They were not prepared. They were not prepared. The poor guys. We were filming in the winter. There's not a lot of sunlight, so you have to film every second you can get. So you'd be up at 4 in the morning, breakfast, wardrobe, makeup, getting up to a bus or a mountain jeep or whatever, go to the set, everything's ready, and just be standing, waiting. Like that was a guy with like a light meter, measuring the brightness. And it's bright enough. Action! Film, 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 film. Next location, film, 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 film. It was incredible work. It was pretty much 15 or 16 days, 16 hours a day.
Wow.
For like a week.
That's awesome.
Then just crash and sleep for a whole weekend.
That's amazing.
It was absolutely fantastic.
And for anyone who is a Game of Thrones fan, so we'll recap this at the end, but I'll definitely have you repeat your actor Facebook page. if you ever find your way out here to Iceland, I'd strongly encourage you to message his page and see if you can't hire him to take you on a tour. Because I'll tell you what, like, there are so many cool fucking places here. You get to see so much cool shit. And your tour, I mean, again, I'm not sounding like a fanboy or anything. Your tour was amazing because you got to see shit that no other tour brought you to. Like, I mean, and I've been driving around Iceland now for the past, like, 5 days. And if it wasn't for you, I would have missed, like, half. I wouldn't know where any of these places were. Like, when we went down into the Erie, when you took us down into that canyon, or whatever you want to call it, that was amazing. Like, that was just gorgeous. And I'm pretty sure I probably drove past it at some point, and I still have no idea where it was. Because it's not, there's no big sign that's like, right here's the Erie.
Yeah. So there are guides that are better than me in the traditional sense. They know a lot more about Iceland, they got a lot more facts. What I have is passion and the drive. Every Game of Thrones tour I went on, I loved it. I had my passion up to 11, showing people what I find interesting, what fascinated me. I'm taking my geeky experience and just having people be a part of that.
And it was the fire. That's what, like, appealed to me so much. Like, because, you know, we talked, I guarantee you don't remember when we met because you've met so many people, but we talked on the bus, and it was funny because you kept throwing out little witty one-liners, and I'm such a sarcastic ass, I just fired right back. And there was, like, a connection there that was, like, wit sees wit. And it was just awesome. Like, and I'm not giving away any secrets here, but there was a whole scene, I've got pictures of it, where you killed someone in our group, where you're like, I need a volunteer to kill. And that girl did an amazing job. She went down like a champ. She died well. But yeah, it was such a, of all the tours I've been on, there is nothing like that. Because again, not that the other tour guides aren't really nice people and really smart and they know their facts, but it was the difference between going to a lecture and going to a performance. And that's the best way to experience it. So if you happen to find yourself out in Iceland, which you should go to, without a doubt, message his page and see if you can't arrange for something, because you will not regret it. I can guarantee that. You will not regret it. So we're probably going to wind down here, kind of get closer to the wrap up. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. First one, if you could speak to a past version of yourself, whatever, from today back to as far as you can remember, if you could speak to a past version of yourself who was struggling with whatever, what kind of advice would you give them?
I'd probably start by punching myself in the face. Yeah. But it is probably pretty standard for us, our generation, our modern society. Get out of this box you're supposed to be in. Stop trying to fit in and tick all the boxes. I'm supposed to have a job at this age. I'm supposed to have a wife and kids. I'm supposed to have a car. I'm supposed to have all these things. I'm not supposed to show emotions because I'm a man. I'm not allowed to have friends of the opposite sex because I have a wife. All these bullshit rules. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was 20. I'm turning 40 next year. Still don't know what I want to be. Because being myself is sort of what I should do.
Well, right there's your poignant message. That right there. Being yourself is what you're supposed to be. That was profound.
That's my career.
Perfect. So I'm going to duck real quick. Just want to make sure we still have everything going. And we do. Sorry about that. I'm all paranoid because it shut down before. All right, last question, and then we'll wrap this up. So, what, and in a way I think you just answered this, but how or what would you describe as Theod's great path?
I think it would be the people around me. The way I interact with people. I see the best things in people and I try to draw it out. I try to bring people into the fold. I show their interest it is sometimes a bit dangerous. You can't commit to someone who's like very toxic. Bigger battles. But I try to make the world a better place. It might be small ripples in the water, but they're still gonna affect other people. And it's part of my upbringing. I had a very messed up upbringing, but I want to leave the world a better place. And not by writing a book, but by influencing, affecting people, helping them to be a better version of themselves, so they can help others being a better version of themselves. So all the trauma and the shit I've been through in the past, this helps me to be who I am and helps me help others, so they don't have to deal with the same shit I had to deal with. And in a way, this makes all the pain a little bit worth it.
On a side note, and to quote, no homo, that's why I love you, because that is why I feel we're connected, because I could not have said that. I mean, I could have said the same thing. It's well done. I'm gonna fist bump that. Yeah. All right, so I hope you all greatly enjoyed this. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day for this. As always, I'm Tony B. This is the Great Path Podcast, and I can't wait to make another episode for you guys.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being on.